This is the Walter Bacon podcast where I highlight some of the most practical and game-changing B2B AI and tech startups. And today I'm with my friend Rob Pankow. He's the CEO and co-founder of Simplyblock.io. And Simplyblock provides NVMe-based software-defined storage for Kubernetes and high-performance applications such as databases, AI, or streaming services. They're leading a new era of enterprise-grade storage, one that adapts, scales, and performs at the speed of your business today. So Rob, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Walt. Great being here, and thanks for that very nice intro.
So let's get right into the problem that you're solving. You mentioned like there's an intersection of three different events kind of converging today. What's the big problem that you guys are solving right now?
Sure, great question. So, generally the problem we're seeing in the market is that so-called on-prem or private clouds that large enterprises have been running for years now. So think of big banks, big telcos, big insurance companies. Everyone thought that everything's going to shift to the public cloud like AWS, GCP, or Microsoft Azure, and everyone was kind of underinvesting in their on-prem environments. But now, as things have changed a little bit, meaning AI arrived, so everyone wants to kind of do AI, and they don't have time to move things to the cloud, and in most of the cases they can't, because if you're a bank, you're just a regulated, you're a regulated institution, and you just cannot shift things, all of your critical workloads to AWS. So that's one thing. The second thing is obviously people want to take advantage of technologies like Kubernetes, and they want to use them at scale for all kinds of workloads. So there's a natural shift from legacy architectures to Kubernetes native architectures, and that's happening in those private data centers. And lastly, the last kind of nudge that is happening is that the VMware got acquired, and a lot of customers are really getting a little bit upset with their pricing and license changes, which kind of forces them even more so to modernize and move now. So in other words, like each of those three factors should be kind of enough to move, but all of those three combined make them move even quicker, right? And as they do that move, they obviously also need cloud native or Kubernetes native data products or storage products for their infrastructure, and that's really where Simplyblock comes in.
Cool. And I also heard you talk about like no vendor lock-in because it's software defined. Like, can you talk about the benefit of that and why that's so important?
Oh, definitely. So one big problem people realize with VMware, it's really that lock-in effect, right? So the big companies like the Fortune 500s of this world, like they can pay this 50, 100 million per year to VMware. Like it hurts, but they can pay it. I think the bigger problem is they realize that the next year maybe the vendor will come and ask them for 200 million or 300 million, and that really is gonna be a problem, right? And why are they locked in? Because obviously VMware is a fully proprietary solution. It's got pros and cons. The pro is that it's really fully integrated ecosystem, and it's been great. That's why they are out there, and then that's why they're so sticky, because it's fully integrated suite of products that kind of work together very well. But the con of it is that it's very hard to move out of that ecosystem, right? It's a bit like Apple. So from that perspective, people want to move to open standard architectures, and for compute, it's Kubernetes. So Kubernetes gives you that cloud native, open source, generally open standard format, which solves your compute and networking in a data center. But for storage, Kubernetes does not solve storage, and for storage, you want to have potentially also another open standard that's based on standard kind of commodity hardware and standard networking, and it's software defined. So again, doesn't lock you into any kind of specific appliance or specific network setup that the traditional storage is tended to do. So that's really where we kind of keep helping that open architecture with Simplyblock, where on one hand you have the Kubernetes standard, and on the other hand you have really off-the-shelf commodity hardware and networking that you use for storage that can be replaced throughout the years, or the vendors can be changed and so on. It doesn't really affect the operations of the system.
Cool. So that's definitely giving cost savings to your customers and everything. What about the speed? I know you guys talked about low latency, speed, and unblocking engineers, and how the current systems or the typical systems are a real bottleneck for teams that are moving at the pace of today. So can you talk about the speed advantage that you guys have?
Of course, happy to do so. Speed is very important because that's the default has changed, right? So with AI, like every second or microsecond, the workload needs to wait for storage to respond. It's just a waste, right? So the longer you wait, the less you can do, and really the latency has really an impact of how many transactions you can perform per second. So for example, if you're running a huge database and you want to kind of run now a parallel set of databases, because maybe your AI agents want to, perform a parallel tests on those databases, like you might need 3, 4, 5 times the capacity of operations you can perform per second. And that is indirectly or actually directly derived also from how fast those operations respond from your underlying storage or data product. And that's where we really stand out. So we only add a very thin software layer on top of a raw hardware. So in some ways, you kind of get the performance and the experience of a bare metal hardware, but at really large scale. And this is really where we kind of shine, right? So we bring that bare metal like performance, but at very large scale. And this is really the non-trivial problem that we solved.
Cool. I also saw your like dashboard, like you have different ways that you can interact with your system. So CLI, API, or the Control Center UI. So it's easy to use for any different type of user, right?
Definitely. I mean, storage needs to be this kind of thing that's just there in a bag that works, and ideally you just don't have much exposure to it. So generally people tend to automate most of the storage operations, and that's what we help them with. So a lot of people who run it through Kubernetes, the important thing is that storage also can be fully managed from within Kubernetes, because you don't then want to have Kubernetes cluster on one side and then storage on the other side. And this is really why the traditional storage systems don't work really well with Kubernetes, because the life cycle is completely managed externally outside of Kubernetes. So to be Kubernetes native and to be fully automated storage solution, you need to be able to expose all of those, all of those three ways of managing storage, like API, CLI, and CSI in terms of Kubernetes, to really give that full automation and give that full flexibility that the users want and need, right? Obviously from the workload perspective. So that is really what we provide, and obviously in this AI-driven agentic world, like this is even more so important, because you don't want to have any kind of manual intervention throughout the whole flow of the process, right? As the storage is concerned.
Nice. I saw on your website some awesome case studies and some testimonies. So do you want to talk about one example of a customer and kind of what their before state was and what their after state was?
Definitely. So we work with a lot of large companies in regulated industries in performance sensitive sectors. So, for example, one of our customers is one of the largest online gaming platforms in the world, and they have more than 100 million users daily or monthly on their platforms. And for them specifically, what was very important is to have that bare metal like experience, but at very large scale, right? So they are in the private cloud and they run their own hardware to get really the top of the edge performance. So they tended to do everything on bare metal, but because they grew very fast as a company, they couldn't do it at scale anymore, right? So in other words, anytime a bare metal server would go down, the service would be affected. So this is really what we help them with. So not only that we can consolidate the performance of bunch of servers or hundreds or thousands of actually servers and storage devices, but we can also provide that abstraction where whenever they have to take down a server, take down a cluster, upgrade, it doesn't really affect their live service, and it doesn't affect not only the availability of the service but also the total performance output that you get out of the system. And this is really where we help the most of them with.
Awesome. So if someone's listening to this and they want to engage and learn more and touch base with you and get some more information, how should they do that?
Firstly, they can just come to our website, simplyblock.io, and obviously we have all of the contact forms there, and there's a lot of content regarding use cases, case studies, as you mentioned, a lot of content related to storage. Of course, follow us on LinkedIn at Simplyblock, on Twitter, on X, and on YouTube. It's all under Simplyblock or simplyblock.io, and of course, personally on LinkedIn, I'm also available.
Nice. And who would you say is the ideal prospect for you guys?
We really look at Fortune 500 companies, mostly organizations moving away from VMware. So companies that have been really deep into VMware ecosystem and now want to have the same kind of experience, but in a more open standard experience, maybe choosing platforms like Red Hat OpenShift and looking for storage for OpenShift. That's one of the best cases we've seen out there in the market.
Rob, this has been great having you today and learning more about Simplyblock. So I look forward to watching the growth and excitement and adoption of your platform.
Thank you very much. And thanks again. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
awesome. Thanks, Rob.